The first indication of activity appears during a routine perimeter inspection, where deep, freshly pressed tracks are visible along the outer fence line. The damp soil clearly shows recent movement, with light rooting patterns and smooth slide marks that indicate repeated access points rather than random wandering. These signs suggest the animals returned during the night, using the same entry route they have relied on for days. Surveillance footage later confirms the timing, capturing several large shapes moving across the tree line shortly before dawn and advancing directly toward the agricultural zone. This is not a recreational pursuit or chance encounter. It is a controlled management operation designed to protect crops, land stability, and critical farming infrastructure that supports long-term production. With confirmation secured, the team moves deliberately into position. Every action from this point forward is guided by responsibility, legal compliance, and safety. Wildlife control requires discipline, not urgency. The terrain to the west consists of low wooded hills that naturally funnel movement through soft soil channels. Track layering reveals habitual travel patterns, showing that this route has been used repeatedly over consecutive nights. Rather than closing distance prematurely, the team holds higher ground and observes. Understanding how animals use terrain is a foundation of effective population control, allowing future movement to be predicted before damage occurs. From the observation point, subtle movement becomes visible more than 100 yards away. A brief pause in the animal's motion suggests uncertainty, a natural response when environmental cues shift. Instead of applying pressure, the team maintains distance. Controlled space and silence create hesitation without escalation. Only when full body movement and behavioral intent are clearly identified does intervention become an option. In responsible wildlife management, restraint often produces better outcomes than immediate action. As wind direction begins to change, positioning is adjusted without delay. Even slight shifts in scent can compromise an entire operation. Through binoculars, one animal stands offset from the group, displaying a posture commonly associated with environmental assessment. This moment requires careful evaluation rather than rapid reaction. Terrain angles, distance, and potential escape routes are all considered before any decision is made. Ethical responsibility outweighs impulse at every stage of the process. When earlier disturbances cause part of the group to drift eastward, the response remains measured. There is no uncontrolled pursuit. Each team member executes their assigned role, maintaining alignment and coverage across designated zones. Communication remains brief and precise, ensuring continuous awareness of movement without confusion or overlap. This coordinated structure prevents misdirection and keeps the handling area contained. Wild hogs possess highly developed senses, particularly when it comes to scent and sound. However, they also follow consistent behavioral patterns. They tend to favor open ground where visibility improves threat detection and foraging efficiency. Based on this knowledge, the team focuses not on where the animals are at the moment, but where they are most likely to move next. Managing distance before entry into production zones significantly reduces damage and risk. This distinction separates proactive management from reactive response. At the edge of a clearing, one animal pauses while dense vegetation provides cover behind it. Such terrain increases complexity and risk. Adjusting approach angles reduces uncertainty and ensures that all movement remains within a secure operational zone. Responsible control only occurs when an entire space can be managed safely. As daylight begins to fade, attention shifts toward feeding areas where repeated activity threatens irrigation systems and soil integrity. At this stage, the operation reflects long-term population management rather than an isolated event. Protecting farmland is an ongoing responsibility that depends on knowledge, patience, and careful planning. Across the wide agricultural plains of Oklahoma, feral hog activity has become a persistent and escalating challenge. Their ability to move quickly through cover, remain concealed within crops, and cause extensive damage in a short period places entire growing seasons at risk. Fields that require months of planning and labor can be compromised in a single night. For this reason, landowners increasingly rely on coordinated wildlife management teams operating within strict legal and ethical frameworks. These operations are not driven by confrontation or emotion, but by experience, data, and responsibility toward the communities that depend on stable agricultural production. As daylight breaks, the control mission begins with careful coordination. Specialized tracking dogs are introduced to locate movement patterns within the cornfields. Their heightened sensory ability allows them to follow fresh trails through dense rows where human visibility is limited, rather than forcing direct engagement. The dogs apply measured pressure, encouraging the animals to reveal their position. The sound cues they provide become a navigation tool for the team, allowing precise adjustments without rushing into uncertain terrain. Early location reduces risk and prevents the operation from turning reactive. Approaching the outer edge of the field, conditions become more complex. Thick vegetation creates natural barriers that favor concealment and unpredictability. This environment requires heightened discipline, as one miscalculated move can push animals deeper into vulnerable crop zones. Instead of advancing directly, the team establishes an intercept strategy. Movement is guided outward, using terrain knowledge and controlled pressure to redirect the group toward more manageable ground. Every decision is made with awareness that limited visibility increases both operational and environmental risk. With perimeter positions secured, the team advances cautiously. Fresh tracks pressed firmly into the soil offer more reliable information than any electronic system. These signs indicate recent activity and reveal the size and direction of movement. One large individual is quickly identified as a primary source of crop damage. Addressing such targets at the right moment reduces repeated incursions and prevents further loss, all while remaining compliant with approved management protocols. Not every operation unfolds exactly as planned. Following an established travel route, an adult animal is observed actively damaging crops. A rapid attempt to intervene alters the group's movement, causing several animals to shift direction into an adjacent sugarcane field. This outcome highlights the reality of wildlife management. Even experienced teams must adapt to changing conditions. Success is not measured by avoiding every complication, but by recognizing consequences immediately and adjusting strategy before broader damage occurs. A revised plan is implemented without delay. One unit establishes a blocking position along the outer boundary of the sugarcane, while another focuses on guiding movement away from high-value areas. Rather than forcing direct confrontation, the terrain is reshaped into a controlled movement corridor. This approach lowers risk, limits stress, and protects as much cultivated land as possible. Coordination between teams remains constant, with clear updates ensuring that pressure stays balanced and predictable. As the perimeter tightens, remaining animals are contained within a predefined zone. Gradually, movement subsides and the area returns to stillness. For the farmer, this represents more than a successful operation. It means preserved investment, protected soil structure, and reduced risk of repeated intrusion. These outcomes are the result of discipline, planning, and adherence to responsible wildlife management principles. This mission reflects how Oklahoma addresses feral hog pressure through structured control rather than impulsive action. Legal compliance, environmental awareness, and long-term strategy guide every step. As long as invasive populations continue to challenge agricultural stability, operations like this will remain necessary. They are part of a broader effort to protect land, livelihoods, and food systems that entire regions depend upon. On the rugged hillsides of California, feral hogs present a different but equally serious challenge. Their impact extends beyond agriculture into fragile ecosystems, where repeated rooting destabilizes soil, accelerates erosion, and increases the risk of landslides. Roads, farms, and residential areas located below these slopes face growing pressure as natural ground cover is stripped away. The objective here is not short-term removal, but reducing long-term ecological risk before damage spreads into areas that are far harder to recover. After navigating rough access roads, the team stops at the base of the hillside and deploys using sector-based positioning. Each member is assigned responsibility for a defined portion of terrain, ensuring no area is left unmonitored. Instead of moving immediately, attention shifts to wind direction, sound patterns, and subtle indicators within dense brush. Once activity is confirmed, early pressure is applied carefully to limit expansion across the slope. Establishing control at this stage prevents the group from dispersing into wider and more hazardous zones. In open highland terrain, feral hogs rely on established travel routes rather than random movement. Applying control only at isolated points allows populations to reappear elsewhere. To counter this, the team uses a spatial management approach, moving in a broad arc that gradually narrows movement corridors. The goal is not close engagement, but restricting freedom of movement across the slope. This method supports effective large-scale control while minimizing unnecessary disturbance. Behavioral understanding plays a critical role. These animals demonstrate strong memory and adaptability, particularly in recalling escape paths. Anticipating this, the team holds key ridge positions at blocked known exits and reduce the likelihood of sudden movement toward residential areas below. When direction changes occur, coordinated adjustments maintain containment without creating panic or fragmentation. As conditions shift and daylight advances, control pressure keeps movement predictable. Safe distance is maintained throughout, with every action focused on stability rather than escalation. By the end of the operation, the hillside returns to quiet. While no single mission resolved the issue permanently, consistent, lawful management reduces long-term risk. Protecting land, infrastructure, and communities depends on sustained responsibility and informed decision-making as long as invasive populations continue to challenge environmental balance.